Okay, I'm 6 minutes late. Well, welcome to another live stream with Harry. Good to see you guys. Yeah, I was going to be late. Yeah, went out there, grabbed myself another cup of water. Haven't made myself a coffee. Damn, didn't have enough time. Where were you this morning? Yeah, I know it's pretty early in WA. Good to see you, T1. I suspect you just got up out of bed. It'd be about, what would it be? 8:30 in Perth. Give us your thyroid protocol. Well, in terms of supporting your thyroid, there's a number of things that you need to do. One is you need clean up your nutrition, get rid of the sort of stuff that has, the sugars, the refined stuff, the oils and all that sort of stuff. Clean that out of your diet is the most important things you can do. The other thing is that I would basically take a low dose boron as well. That tends to sort of help balance all the different hormones. So that helps as well. Make sure you're within the sort of the range of your iodine requirements. Selenium is very important. And selenium also helps suppress the reverse T3. It's the most potent at suppressing the reverse T3 in that regard. There's anecdotal stuff and some evidence that taurine plays a role there, but it's something that I brought up. But it's still, there's not enough. But it's a good player in general hormonal health to have taurine in there. We just don't understand enough about it in that regard. So I would basically probably supplement a bit higher than the 3 grams that I do, probably up to 6 when it comes to taurine. I'd initially start with boron at about 6 and then come down to 3 and stick to that for a while. But the key ones is to get rid of the inflammatory foods out of your diet and to basically have sufficient selenium. And I would look at targeted selenium at around about 250 to 300, sort of the MCG, which is the and I would stick to that sort of range. I wouldn't go any higher. I've seen people say that higher may be better, but I'm sort of reluctant to basically to say that to people. And it's really trying to balance those hormones in your system. A lot of people have different ideas of how to do these sort of things. I find that if you're on a species appropriate diet and you've got good micronutrition, that usually it resolves itself quite a bit. Vitamin D is another big player because vitamin D plays an important role in your general hormonal health and stuff like that. It also plays an important role in the health of the thyroid as well. MK4 is another important thing. This is why most people, when they do, a carnivorous diet and all that, they generally their thyroid tends to normalize, becomes much better. So there's a number of those animal food elements that are at play. And that's what you really need to do. Initially, I usually tell people to push up things like selenium and zinc, these sort of things, get their iodine into order, um, consider a bit of extra thiamine, to sort of deal with the blood sugar issues, these sort of things in those early stages. But you can ignore all that and just say, well, I'm going to go into a purely species appropriate diet. I'm going to consume sufficient amount of, animal flesh with salt. And over time, your hormones should normalize and be in the proper range in that regard. But I did notice your email. I just didn't get around actually replying to it. I will give you a bit more detailed stuff. I am going to do a proper video showing the exact amounts and stuff like that. And that is coming. So, but I will email you this week sometime. That's towards Lukey. Hello, test, 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 tap on the mic. That's why we love you, Michelle. G'day, zombie. How's sunny Queensland? Can't do a lot of things today. Quick stretch of the legs. Actually, I did some jumping jacks out there and a few other things. First, I did some stretches. Yes, I did. And then I did some jumping jacks as well. Probably not a good look. I'm not going to videotape it for you. Empty your piss bottles. Yeah, they're under here. How did you know? You got a spy cam here that I don't know about. You're always laughing. Damn birds. Howdy, mate. Howdy. The good thing about having a laptop is I'm peeing right now as I type this. Too much information, zombie. But that is true. You could literally just, mine unfortunately isn't wireless for the obvious reasons. It's hardwired. And so, yes, that would be a bit of a problem for me to move this. But I could shift to a tablet and take that with me. Time for a nappy change. Is that what you do? You just sit on your chair continuously in a nappy. Is that what you're doing? Oh God, horrifying. If you ever get an invite from T2, don't turn up. It's going to be a bad look. Make sure to cover the camera. Yes. Yeah, good idea. You never know. Yes, one of those overseas hackers gets into your computer while you're on there. Yes. But I guess Luke now knows he's the one of the people who voice chats with me on Bart's Discord. Ah, so that's right. Yeah, I did come once on. Not once. I've come on a couple of times to do a bit of a peek, and I have noticed both Kitty and Lukey going at it. Fapnado is also a regular. Well, he was back then. I haven't been on for a while, so not with you lot. Yeah, I wouldn't trust them, especially this one and the other one. They're both a worry. Yes, to all their Carney brothers and sisters. and a few fans there. Yes, he does do a lot of that, old T2. And I'll just ruffle through these until I get to a question. Oops. Gotta take a shower quickly. Yeah, I could be pretty fast if I'm in a hurry, like 5 minutes in, out. That's what it was like this morning. God, I got to the computer. I realised I hadn't actually, sort of brushed my hair, and I go, "Oh shit, I look like feral." And already, look, it's a fucking thing. You remember when I actually cut it last time? It's fucking grown again. Pisses me off too much. Yeah, good animal foods. And that's the thing, a lot of people, when they become too catabolic and all that, it doesn't matter what diet you're on, you're going to lose your hair, you're going to lose this, you're going to lose that, or whatever. I mean, I only noticed thinning of my hair when I actually did the therapeutic type of keto diet, like 10% protein and the rest all fat. And that was a stupid thing to do for a month, which I did. And I actually did notice a few things of that sort of stuff happening. Other people react differently, so even when I went back to 15 or 20%, I was fine at those levels, where other people, even at 15%, can actually exhibit. It's just the differences between people, how much they can handle in terms of all their protein that they really need desperately. Yes, all the things that we have to do just to keep it all going. Yes, good to see you, Deborah, come across. Yes, hello again, Shell. Stick to 3. Yeah, stick to 3. You don't want to be above that. Yeah, stick to 3 in terms of boron. Yeah, it's a good thing. It suppresses prolactin. I usually say to people, if you've got a lot of xenoestrogens, maybe from things like mold, maybe from things like plastics, you've cooked in plastics for a very long time, you've done all this sort of things. At that point, I would say, okay, we need to get rid of some of this excess amounts, xenoestrogens and other things. So at that point, I would say, okay, let's go to doing, we want to methylate some of this stuff away. We want to sort of reduce it. So I'd go to boron, like 12. Then after a week, I'd go to 9, then 6, and then 3. And I would also take choline in large amounts. So the sort of 1 or 2 grams is probably all you need. I would literally go up to 5 to 6 grams per day for a period of time, like a month, to really not only push the fatty liver out, if you're coming from an old bad diet, but also get rid of a lot of the xenoestrogen, too much prolactin, all these things that can actually affect your hair follicles and stuff like that, especially prolactin can actually cause male pattern baldness or have an effect. There's an association. How strong, I don't know. So there is a way of actually, reducing that sort of stuff. So that's the sort of combination. If you're thinking in those terms, we did talk about if T1 just got up, I wonder if he watches Harry streams with Morning Wood. That is disturbing. That is disturbing. Probably does. He is a sick puppy. It's from Western Australia, Perth. They're 2 hours behind us. So 10:30 here is basically 8:30 there. That, and we're T2 is on the eastern states, on the eastern part of the country of Australia. So it's a bit different in that regard. So when it was here 8 o'clock, it would have been 6 o'clock in the morning. I suspect T1 was tucked in bed at that moment. Yes. But we won't go into the woodpecker thing, will we, T2? G'day, Honest, good to see you. Tubby. Oh, God. And there's a lot of interaction between you guys. That's great, you know. I'm really glad. Nurse Trouble's in the house. G'day, Nurse. Good to see you guys interacting. Ian, got another question. Thanks for Ton Harry. While I'm looking forward to all the benefits, my thyroid issues were the main driver that made me discover carnivore. Good, carnivore. Look, a lot of, if you take a look, most people that have got thyroid issues are basically on a sad diet and are nutrient deficient, So nutrient deficiency is a big thing. If you don't have enough selenium, and most people are very poor in selenium, one, it's protective. It's a potent antioxidant. But are also very important for converting T4 to T3. But there are other factors as well. Some people that have got problems with their kidneys or their liver may not be a good converter. So this is the reason why when you go to a carnivore diet, you usually fix fatty liver, usually fix kidney issues, you usually fix most of these issues. And that's why your thyroid tends to normalize because it gets better over time and then eventually normalizes. Vitamin D is very also important because when it comes to the immune system, you need to regulate the immune system. So you need to suppress its over-exaggerated behavior. So vitamin D is also very important. But I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and then I'll give you a dosage before I give you a dosage. But I'll do that privately via an email. So we may get you on a higher dose for a small period of time. And, but I need to know a bit more. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. Here. Okay. Comment. More comments from you guys, which is good. I can't breathe. Oh, is that from the laughter? I can't breathe. God, what? That is worrying. God, at least you like to taking the mickey out of it, out of each other, which is good. I mean, yes, I've got Luke for that. Luke takes the piss out of me, and with some of the actual artistic work that he does. I bet you were. Hey, don't include too many. Don't drag other people into your own mischievous behaviour. You and the other troll, Have you noticed recently I've been trolling you guys a bit? Downside of animal based life, your hair and nails grow too quickly and require more maintenance. That's true as well. Yes. Micronutrient density. Yes. Braided hair. God almighty. I'm too old for that shit. He's convinced that he has ulcer or some kind of gut issue. I made some beef broth for him. What else can I do? Oh, look, I mean, H. pylori is a bit of a there are cases where certain viruses, certain exposures to chemicals and a number of other things have been known to affect the gut, certain gut motility and a few other things. Sometimes a yeast infection can actually exacerbate, like H. pylori and cause some of this sort of stuff. So, it could be legitimately, having issues. So I would try and increase the acidification of his stomach, which is the best thing to do, because once you can actually increase the acidification, you basically can reduce the H. pylori level. H. pylori, is around in all. I mean, I have H. pylori. Many people have H. pylori, but very low amounts, and it's kept under control in most people. But when it gets out of control, that's when and it's usually from low stomach acid. That's basically it. And that can be caused by a number of factors, either a yeast overgrowth like Candida, and for Candida to grow, there can be a number of factors. There can be factors that may be in play, which is, you're not recycling or you're not producing enough bile to sort of clear out any overgrowth within the, your small intestine. That's probably one of the key things that I'd look at. So sometimes taking bile salts for a short amount of period of time, a slightly higher choline intake and taurine intake to improve the liver function, usually tends to resolve a lot of this sort of thing. If you've got long-term issues, and this is a short-term thing from what I can understand, but for people that have got a long-term issue, they may have some enzymatic issues, which may require milk thistle and other things. So it depends on your circumstances. But, don't neglect him, woman. My question for the day: why are people pushing phytoplankton, a good source of omega-3? It doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't. They're very high in aldehydes. A lot of the extraction methods of a lot of this sort of stuff are very high in aldehydes. It's what we discussed earlier with Pim. I mean, Pim is with Bart. They actually did research on aldehydes specifically. They've done a number of papers on aldehydes and looked at these products. So no, they're not good. And even Bart had a recent one. I think it was a critique on Garth Davis. And it was on some of these supplements as well. So no, they're not healthy. They're just dangerous. You should be basically getting your omega-3s from fish, from those sort of sources, from animal products. There's no requirement for all these supplemental, things full of aldehydes and primary oxidative products. No, it's just doesn't make sense. And it's not only these they're actually using a lot of different types. Some of them, there are two camps in there. Some of them are using the plant-based stuff, which is even probably worse in some regards in terms of primary oxidation products. But a lot of these marine ones, the way they're actually processed, some of the higher levels of in terms of aldehydes usually seem to be in these sort of products. And some of the products that some of the vegans are recommending tend to also be quite poor quality stuff. They're cheap, affordable, and that's why they promote them on their websites. But they're the worst ones, the worst type you can actually recommend. So no, it's pretty bad for most people. Dreadlocks would look good on you, Harry. You're a sick puppy. Well, you're going to laugh out of honest. Yes, Lukey. Yes, keep your distance from T2. The recommendations you would get, you would end up looking very strange. Take off your woodies. Is it directed towards T1? God, that is definitely under the belt. It definitely is. Oops. Damn StreamYard. Moved again on me. Moved again. Okay. Hey, Harry. Have stressful... how stressful do you think 32 ounces of regular fat content cow kefir in a day over months on a carnivore diet? It's quite a bit. So let me just, because I need to get it into the metric system, so I know what, before I make a full comment or sound very foolish. Okay, so that's what they call a quart of milk, or milk fat, quart of milk fat. So that is regular fat content of cow milk. Okay, so is that diluted with kefir, and is that just milk? So 32 ounces, which is a quart of milk. If that's a quart of milk with regular fat, and so that's not concentrated. I mean, that would be massive. I don't think. I suspect what you're saying is it's just a quart of milk, or nearly just 907 mils, nearly a liter of milk, in a kefir type thing. Yeah, but I would, I occasionally have kefir, but I don't have kefir continuously. There is a risk of basically, if you've got a risk of, let's say you don't have a very efficient capacity to recycle bile, you're older and you don't have as an efficient capacity. Putting a lot of bacteria in there and not having the capacity to get it into the colon, because you don't have enough bile to push it further down, and you could end up potentially with a bit of an overgrowth. So, I'd be very careful with massive consumption, long-term massive consumption of kefir in that regard. But if you're younger, you've got really good bile, production, and it clears out the small intestine properly, then it probably may not be a problem. So, how do you feel? What's your gut symptomatology? Are you feeling any symptoms, or is it just basically going down there? I mean, when I have milk, I don't really have any real feelings, but some other people tend to basically say, well, I feel bloated, I feel this, I feel that. Then I usually say, you probably got a gut overgrowth. You got you may have SIBO, or you may have, some bacterial overgrowth of some sort, or or maybe, you know, a yeast issue, or other things that could be, or your digestion in general isn't really working as efficiently or properly. So I don't think it's stressful. I mean, when the Maasai can actually consume up to 4.5 liters of milk, which is basically about, you know, more than 4 times what you're consuming, if that is in milk form. But you know, obviously their milk is milk. It's not kefir with a high bacterial load in it. So at this level, I've never consumed it at this level. Like I've consumed like a glass of kefir, but never this quantity in my life. And over, you know, like short periods of time, like every 3 months or every 6 months, small amounts for a week, you know, but never to these sort of levels. So, you know, how do you feel? You know, I don't know. That's a really hard question. You know, you can only work out that from how you feel, but it's not something that I would recommend to other people, these high amounts of kefir continuously. So, you know, so I was using goat milk kefir for 3 months, and it had a better fat to carb ratio, but it's more expensive. So I'm 3 months on a lesser healthier kefir. In my view, I seem to be doing okay and sleep well. Okay, if it's not causing any issues and all that, and you've got good gut, sort of your gut system works well, it's not an issue for you. So if it works for you and it seems to be really good for you, but it wouldn't be something I would recommend to everybody, because people are different. They've got different underlying issues and all that. If you don't have any underlying issues, it's probably not a problem. But I've never consumed it to that level myself, or heard of other people consuming it to that level. So, yeah. Are you familiar with Stanley Aussie, the bear, 40 plus carnivore, until died in a car accident, avoided salt like the plague, says it damages kidneys and interferes with fat metabolism? No, I don't know him, but he's wrong. Just because he basically stated that, based on what, you know, salt does not cause, you know, any issues, kidney damage. That's just nonsense. You know, I mean, your body will use 70% of your kidneys will use 70% of their ATP to recover, to take back, to recover basically, you know, uric acid and salt. That's how important it is to the body. I'll give you another thing. I haven't done the actual thing. There's a study that actually showed that people basically, they had specific minerals and vitamins and stuff like that, and certain, you know, proteins and stuff like that. When they reduced 3 things only, when they reduced the amount of sodium, protein, or phosphorus, bone demineralization, osteopenia, and osteoporosis increased. And this was in a clinical setting. You can't get better than that. Everything else was controlled. You could reduce calcium, you didn't get an effect. You could reduce basically any of the other minerals and vitamins and whatever. This was controlled. This was back, I think it was 75 or whatever. So this was, you could never get it through the ethics committee today. So this just proves that is nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense, you know, the argument that he's putting forward. So no, he was wrong. Simple as that, you know. So he probably, because he eventually at some point his body would have actually upregulated his antidiuretic hormones, and actually would have secreted and retained, used much more energy And that is putting strain on your kidneys to try and hold in the actual sodium. That's not a good thing. But obviously he's on a low inflammatory diet, low sugar and stuff like that, low insulin, because high insulin is what causes water retention and problems. So, but if you're basically, and I don't know his full diet in that regard, and to say that it interferes with fat metabolism based on what science? I've never seen any science. That's just nonsense. I mean, people have got nonsense statements out there, but when you look at pure clinical research where people are controlled, everything is controlled. This is a proper, clinical studies, and they look at that sort of situation. The only things that actually affect mineralization, bone loss, and muscle loss is when you have deficiency in protein, phosphorus. Remember the myth about phosphorus causing the loss of calcium in bones? Myth. You actually need more phosphorus, and animal foods are high in phosphorus to basically phosphorus and sodium. These were the three substances that the research showed. I'm going to do a video on it, so I just haven't got around doing it. So basically, when you look at real science, salted animal foods are fine. So a lot of people have got different stuff, maybe it worked for him. Maybe, he died fairly young in a car accident. Maybe if he continued that way for a number of more years, he may have had other issues, because low sodium actually increases cortisol, actually increases basically uric acid. Sodium keeps uric acid much into the more safer zone. It keeps cortisol down. It keeps a lot of these hormones that are raised, that are catabolic hormones that are raised by an increase in the sort of angiotensin system. So to argue that sodium is bad is nonsense. If you're on a very high sugar diet, and you've got high insulin, you're water retaining, that's what Walter Kempner back in the 1930s showed. And I've done the first chat that I had with Pim, I actually showed that. So, there's good, that is science, where you actually have people in a controlled environment, and he basically used to hit them, make sure that they complied. So, today we could never do this sort of really compliant, clinical, people being locked up type science, because it has difficulty getting past ethics committees. And that's why we do all this bullshit observational shit, which tells us absolutely nothing. You really have to lock people up and control everything to basically really work out what works and what doesn't. So, no, I disagree completely with him. Just because he was a carnivore, he was just still wrong, completely wrong. No different than Paul Saladino is. Just because he considers himself a carnivore, he's wrong on fructose and honey and all the other nonsense that he peddles. So, yeah. US expats who live down under, some carnies follow his protocol. Yeah, well, there's plenty of shit on the, I won't peddle shit, on things that I don't know, or there's no research on them. I'll say, well, I may give you a hypothesis, but I won't peddle, I won't say, yep, definitively, because you've got to have the science. You've got to have really good, vigorous, systematic science and, good mechanism, proven mechanism. If you don't, have you seen Frankie's high glucose honey product? God, is he actually on honey as well? Fuck me. Somebody actually mentioned it to me that he was. I don't know. I didn't know that he had a product. No, that's news to me. So Paul's competing with Frankie on on more things. It's, yes, more of the shenanigans by those two. So anyway, But no, I didn't actually. So, but I'm not surprised that I think he did say, somebody did comment to me that Frankie said that he doesn't think it's optimal honey, but he uses it for a part of his sort of weightlifting protocol or whatever. So that's what he's using it for. But I go, yeah, you don't need to use that shit. Just go back to the old bodybuilders method, which was basically, eggs and milk products. So that's what they used, milk powders and egg powders, and try to make big smoothies to get a lot of, aminos in. And that's what they did. So, and as I said, they are these foods, if you they're higher in deuterium, so it's not foods that I recommend, simple as that. And the honey definitely is high in deuterium, but also these powders. But if you really want to say, I'm a young person, I want to make a lot of gains, I want to go into competition and all that, then I usually give them the information. At the end of the day, it's not something I recommend because I don't do it. I just eat regular food. But if somebody, wants to beef up and just become like Arnold Schwarzenegger and go out and compete and stuff like that, fine, I'll give them the information. Or the old bodybuilder secrets. I actually passed them on to Frankie, a lot of that information as well, before we had a falling out over Bart. So, but I'm surprised that he's gone down this sort of honey thing as well. Yeah, crazy. Anyway. Bird. Backyard birds, your stick. Oh, God. Whacking them with it. I bet you are. God. Is that with your woodpecker? Is he whacking you with a woodpecker? Probably. Sorry. Husband not neglected. Trust me on that. He's very spoiled. Oh, he's a spoiled brat, is he? He's been having pains on the right side. Okay. He even stopped coffee. He used to. Okay, so he's actually having pains on his right hand side. That's a liver. That's probably gallstones. That's probably what it is. Tell him to basically massage under his rib cage, the actual area when he feels pain, and it will relieve it. And basically get in contact with me, and I'll give you some pointers on basically how to get rid of gallstones and gall and sludge. So another one of those videos that I need to make. I'll just copy and paste the stuff that I said to the other person. Yeah, so yeah, that's probably what it is. And so fats and stuff like that can aggravate it, because so you sort of you need to go onto bile salts. You need to support the FXR enzyme. So you need choline, you need taurine, you need basically these things in higher doses to basically try and actually fix up these bile ducts. Also, lemon. There is something about lemon juice that may help as well, but I know it helps more with things like kidney stones and stuff like that, but there is some information that it does help with gallstones as well. So I've used it in the past. I like lemon anyway. I put it on my steaks and stuff like that. So it's not an issue for me. And I'm not a Puritan in that regard. But yeah, so drop me an email and provide me with a bit of additional sort of information on his feelings. Try and get him to basically, when he does have a meal and he feels that, get him to massage that area, and if you massage right under the rib cage, not really hard, just lightly, under it, in sort of pressuring upwards and then sideways and all that, to try and just force, the motility of the actual ducts, coming out of the liver, and that should basically help improve things. And he'll probably notice less pain there, especially if he's feeling, like the shoulder pain coming right up and feeling. And sometimes you can actually even get, when I had really bad case, what was it, about nearly 1.5 years now, I really started feeling like really strong headaches around the temple area and stuff like that. It was, especially on this side, it was coming up through the nerve. I forget what the nerve is called that comes up through here, and literally, it was. And when I'd massage this, it would relieve my headaches. So yes, so it's really important that it gets sorted, because those things can get worse, and there's always the risk of infections and all sorts of things. So there are risks involved. So you got to get on top of it. Okay, 8 grams fat per. Okay, so we're not talking about massive amounts in the kefir in that regard. So yeah. So not an issue, but it's more it's not so much the macronutrients that I'm concerned about. It's the sort of the level of the bacterial content. Even though they're beneficial, the level, sometimes some people can't manage that level, or their bodies can't manage it, because they may have like bacterial overgrowth or some liver issue or stomach issue or whatever. But if you're fine and you don't have any of these issues, don't worry about it. So all comes down to, how do you feel? And that was the stuff that I'd actually commented earlier. Now I'll go to this one. Why do the repeat crowd claim that burning? What do you mean burning? I'm not sure about what you mean by what burning. It's all about, a lot of the stuff is about the thyroid health and hormone health that they are actually talking about primarily. They say carbohydrates are needed, and a lot of them say that you need more carbohydrates to maintain higher levels of your active, but that's an artificial thing. So when you add more carbohydrates, you can induce a case of hyperthyroidism, so, which isn't a good thing at all in that regard. And there are many people that are on a standard diet that are hyperthyroid. So you get the two extremes. Some people, and these people also tend to have more brittle bones over time, where osteopenia and osteoporosis tend to increase in people with sort of hypothyroidism. With hyperthyroidism, they tend to end up with more brittle bones. So it really fucks up their collagen sort of structure of their bone, and sort of over, and it could be the glycating factors of some of the enzymes and stuff like that. It could be some of the excess sugars that are playing havoc. It's really hard. It's so confounded. There's so piss poor research. But where you see, if you look at indigenous populations, their thyroid is functioning properly. When you look at people that are on a SAD diet, that's where you see the majority of people with hyper and hypothyroidism. And you also said hypothyroidism endemic within vegans. My older sister, she was more or less, a high carbohydrate eater for a very long time, and she had hypothyroidism. So, it's pretty much when you're eating a species inappropriate diet that happens. I'm not sure what you mean by claim that burning. I'm not sure about oxidizing. You mean sugars is better? Is that what you're trying to say? I'm not sure exactly, but they do claim that oxidizing or burning, in your case, sugar is a much better fuel for the body, which is nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. Most animals that in nature do not oxidize sugar. They have access to very little sugar. It's not the natural fuel. It's something that we've developed the capacity to extract a lot of energy from sugar, especially in the last 100 years, as we developed very sophisticated methods of extracting. But beyond that, before that, most of the diets of people, you go look at cookbooks. I've actually shown on one of my live streams old cookbooks from the early part of the 20th century. It's just animal foods, because there was no refrigeration. Without refrigeration, how are you going to store plant foods? They don't last very long. You take broccoli or take spinach or take any of these foods or fruit or whatever. You leave it out of refrigeration, it goes bad very quickly. The only things that actually can stay out is tubers. That's it. And when it came to tubers, for a very long period of time, we had no ability to access any sugar out of tubers. Why? Simple. We just basically didn't have fire. We had fire about 1.5 million years ago. Prior to that, chimps or us had no ability. The only sources of sugar for the chimps or us before that period of time was basically from fruit, seasonal. That was it. So it's absolutely nonsense. I mean, they talk shit all the time. Absolutely. I mean, Chris Walker, one of the what I call repeat lights, he basically sat around in a conversation with one of his buddies and said that, when bears come out of hibernation, they are extremely, in a sort of a diabetic state, he sort of stated, and then they go and find sugar and they consume shitloads of sugar and they're no longer in a diabetic state. And that was his argument why sugar is, the natural fuel. Without it, if you deprive your body and you have a lot of these free fatty acids, you will become diabetic. Have you seen anybody on keto become diabetic with a lot of free fatty acids flowing and very little sugar? No. What a bunch of nonsense. Let alone, do you think a bear coming out in spring, there's no fruit around it, we've just come out of winter, there's no fruit, there's no tubers, there's nothing. All this grows later on in the year, in the summer months and beyond. The only thing you can actually see, you go and check any video, like go on National Geographic or any of these sort of sites and look at bears coming out of hibernation. They are basically sitting along rivers, on the rocks of rivers, as basically the salmon are coming upstream to spawn. That's their food. It's a high-fat, protein, animal-based, protein-based food that they are consuming. It's just lies, nonsense, half-truths. This is what they peddle. Nonsense science. It's just on and on and on. It just never ends, never ending. And, it drives people mad. It drives me mad as well. Okay, I've already got to that. Body repeat crowds claim creating glucose exclusively fat and protein stressful on the body long term. Actually, the most stressful thing is glucose metabolism. Fat metabolism is really easy. It doesn't actually produce a lot of reactive oxygen species anyway in the mitochondria. Very easy. It's low in deuterium, so it doesn't damage your nanomotors. It's the best fuel you can actually have. So, and why would it be stressful? Body's designed to, oxidize fats. It's really good at doing it, actually. So it's just nonsense. They've got no argument. When I've actually argued with them, I've said, show me studies. And all they do is they will push you to studies of people on a mixed macro diet, on a SAD diet. I go, well, that doesn't tell me anything. That's just shit. That's just shit observational science. They got nothing. It's just claims. I mean, as I say, they are making the claims. If you're making the claims, show us the evidence. I'm not making any claims. They are making claims that is superior. Well, show us the evidence. They got none. They come up with all this sort of nonsense about free fatty acids and all that. And I say, well, normally humans in the wild would be consuming a high animal-based diet that would not be storing a whole lot of, rancid oils in their lipids. Now, if you've basically been on a SAD diet for 20 years and your fat cells are full of this toxic, seed oils, obviously when you actually go on a ketogenic diet and release a lot of this free fatty acid, it's going to be slightly inflammatory. Why? Because it's rancid toxic shit that's coming out of your fat cells. So why wouldn't it be? But if it was animal fats that were stored in there, like in a tribal society sort of setting, that wouldn't be a problem. This is why people that know me, that have been on my site for some time, know that I recommend people coming off a SAD, vegan, vegetarian diet, or any diet that actually included a lot of seed oils or some level of seed oils, that they should be on a low dose vitamin E made from palm oil produced by Jarrow, that for the next 4 to 6 years, depending on their past consumption of seed oils. So when these free fatty acids do come out, they can be stabilized and sorted by the vitamin E. You need low dose, not high dose, because it creates, imbalances. And in that sort of environment, you'll have sufficient glutathione to refresh those electron donors. And that's all, that's their role, basically, to hand over an electron to stabilize those fats. Okay, that is what they do. And then basically glutathione if you're in a ketotic sort of state or a low carb state, you will have higher upregulation of glutathione. And that glutathione, or you're fasting, that glutathione, then you actually even have more glutathione, which will recycle vitamin C and vitamin E, and they will do their job of basically being electron donors to these fats that are being released into the bloodstream to be basically utilized as energy. They will basically deal with them. But, to blame animal fats in such a convoluted way when you don't understand some of the, you ignore the past dietary practices of these people, you ignore basically, what is causing these things, and then just arbitrarily just claim, like Paul does. He just says, "Oh, I've seen all these rat studies. They show this. Oh, it must be that." It's logical that it's going to be that, he goes. Even though he's actually admitted, even in his last video, he can't prove it, but he really thinks that it must be this. This is what these guys are saying. They got no proof, but they really think it must be this. Just crap. And I say, well, show me one study with a one good clinical study. I said, you guys, I've said to them, why don't you guys, like we carnivores are putting money together to create, do a study on carnivores. why don't you guys do a study on this issue that you keep on umming and uffing about? No, they're not interested. They're not interested in the truth. They're not interested in actually learning. I mean, I'm willing to jettison. I've had certain hypotheses in the past or beliefs that I just threw away, and I've told you guys about them. I've mentioned the Inuit one and a few others in the past, and I've got rid of them because as I've learned more and I've understood better the biochemistry, the biophysics and stuff like that, I've realized, it's more nuanced. It's not, black and white, or it's not like this. And, I'm you could say, a truth seeker. I'm seeking to understand how things work in a more deeper way. I'm not interested in basically pushing a certain thing. The only thing I actually say, I make it quite clear. I say there's no proof for any diet, absolutely no proof for any diet, because unless you basically lock people up in medical wards for their whole life, and you've got twins who you can separate and put on different diets, you will never know 100% about which diet is best or not. You can have some inference over a short amount of period. You can say over 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, this diet seems to do better than that diet or whatever. But over a lifetime, we've got nothing. The only thing that we've got to go on is the N15 isotope analysis. That means looking at the collagen of bones of our ancestors. And I've been saying this from the beginning. The first time I met Bart, I brought, if you go back to my original chats with Bart, I talked about this N15 stuff. That was my focus, I looked into it. I looked at the Max Planck Institute in Leipzig, Germany, who've done some of the best work in the N15 world. I looked at all that sort of stuff. You can go to the Leipzig, Germany site. They do have an English section, and you can search and get the N15 data. So people can actually get it for themselves, and there's plenty of data. I know some vegtards have been going on there because they heard me telling them that's where you can go, and they've been going there, and they've been trying to find little holes in some. There's some areas where, let's say, some of the researchers, maybe there was some contamination or whatever, and there were some variations. They try to use this, but in general, when we look across the whole planet, the data is quite clear. We were highly carnivorous for most of our life. We're either 70 or above that, or 100% between that, carnivorous primarily. We were not sugar eaters. So our genes are designed over millions of years to be consuming certain types of foods primarily. So what would I base my diet on? Something that we've evolved to be eating in a certain way, or a diet that actually emerged, 20 years ago? I say to people, make your choice, because there is no science on the diets. We've got short-term science. Even the one that I mentioned about Christopher Gartner's the A to Z study, that's a 1-year study. The direct study in Israel is a 2-year study plus a 5-year follow-up. They both showed Atkins to be superior, but one over 1 year, the other one over 5 years. But do we have lifetime long? No. So we can only go on this ancestral knowledge. So I've tried to challenge to argue with them, because the best way to argue with them is to basically pull apart their arguments, their studies, to show the nonsense of their studies, the ones that they put up, but they're not willing to. I even got on, got Bart in one case on one of the live streams that, what's his name? Danny does. The guy that actually brings on Ray Pete and all these other people, the Russian guy that's basically got hair loss, and basically thinks that still, tries to argue from that position. I go, look at yourself, mate. You're overweight and you've got hair loss, so, it must be not working for you. So, I mean, but I don't do it personally. I've just sort of tried to argue with him. He just ignores me. I brought Bart on, trying to entice him to debate Bart. He wouldn't. He made a whole lot of excuses why he couldn't and all that, which was a load of bullshit. He just didn't want to. So, I mean, when you really challenge these people, they go and run and hide, because most of their arguments are based on very poor science that can be pulled apart very quickly, and they know it. So, but it's this cognitive dissonance. They still believe it. It's like, recently I heard about a study, this Italian lady who was on low carb and down under, and she basically did a presentation, and she was talking about how women, their compliance to low carb is much lower, and they have this fat phobia, and that's why they don't get the as good results as the men do, which are more compliant. So these difference between the sexes she was looking at, and it's interesting, that there are certain people, because the way our culture has brainwashed us, the way we've grown up and all that, to believe certain things, that we just aren't prepared to consider other things. We're so in our mindset, and that's the problem with these people. It's like, talking to a brick wall. It feels like it. Good to hear. So, sounds like a bunch of BS to me. Yes, it does. It definitely does. How are you doing, Harry? Any tips on transitioning to a carnivore diet from a SAD diet? Look, there are, you will, look, there is a massive shift in your gut microbiome, and some people can have issues. Some people also may have underlying gallbladder issues that they may not be aware of. A lot of, it's like use it or lose it. If you haven't been consuming sufficient fat in your diet, you may have a sluggish gallbladder. What happens is, over time, it can actually build up. You may not have gallstones necessarily, or you may have very few, but you may also have things like a lot of sludge that's been created, and so you may have issues in that transition. So I usually basically say to people, don't go full carnivore, sort of go more like low carb. And I'm not talking about keto here. I'm just talking about low carb with things like pumpkin, things like zucchini, which are less problematic. They've got less sort of, problems. There are low gluten. There are low gluten types of flours like tapioca and stuff like that, tropical ones, which you can combine to, use very little to combine to to create pies, like pies from dairy products. If that doesn't affect you, that's another issue. If you don't, if you have and you could use that for a couple of months, eating that way, and adding more animal foods in to transition, and then your gut microbiome will transition. And if you do that over about 6 months, you could, slowly eliminating more plants out of your diet, you will transition much smoother and all that. It's not a race to the finish. Everybody, you can go for bust, for broke. That's true. You can do that as well. But it'll be a much harder transition for you. You probably get a lot of loose stool and all that. I never got any of this sort of stuff. The reason for it is because I sort of transitioned from high-fat Mediterranean after my SAD diet to, and not very high, like 50% of my calories coming from fat, and then basically to, a low-carb diet, then a keto diet for a smaller bit of period, 6 months, really hardcore keto, 1 month really over the top keto, which I would never do again, which was 90% fat, 10% protein, just crazy stuff. And then basically back to low carb, and then eventually from low carb, just eliminated more and more plants. And, it was within a couple of, I transitioned within a couple of days to carnivore but at that stage I was already highly carnivorous and very little plants anyway in my diet. I just jettisoned the last amounts, like, a bit of things like pumpkin and zucchini and a bit of carrot and stuff like that, and peas, like green peas and stuff like that. I pretty much just jettisoned that last part out completely and went over to carnivore. But the way you do it, the way you transition is up to you. You want to go harder, it's fine, but you're going to have far more gut, stomach issues because you're probably on a sad diet producing much less stomach acid compared to, and so there's a lot of things that you're going to have a lot of upheaval in your body. Let's put it that way. So personally, I would go slower, but that's up to you. If you want to go faster, just be prepared for some issues, basically. So how often you in general fast? I very rarely fast. I basically time restrict feeding. So I will basically not eat for about 16 hours or 14 hours, sometimes 18 hours. And so I will have a window of eating anywhere between 8 hours to 4 hours, so it depends. I occasionally fast for 3 days, and that is once every 3 months. In that regard, I used to fast more. Occasionally around the Greek Orthodox, the major fasting, I don't do the whole 200 days of fasting of the Greek Orthodox calendar. No thanks. But the major ones I do. So on those, in those periods, yes, I probably could be fasting for a couple of weeks at a time, or with very small meals, like very low caloric type and all that. I feel like crap sometimes, So I try to vary it. Usually, I feel the best when I'm actually just having salt water and no food whatsoever. So when I do these Greek Orthodox fasts, I don't feel that fantastic because you're still eating some food and you're not getting enough food. And, it's really, because especially now that it's carnivore, it's even worse because you can't actually go to the plant foods that traditionally you would, because that's what you do on a Greek Orthodox fast. It's all these plant foods that you eat, and you jettison a lot of the animal foods. And then when you're refeeding or feasting, that's when you're consuming more animal foods most of the year round. But in the times when you're doing the fasting, that you're limited. Sometimes a lot of seafood is allowed, so I usually go to the seafood. But the problem with the seafood is very low in fat. In some cases, you can't even use olive oil. You're not allowed to, so it's really bloody annoying. It's a bit of a hassle. I've found that I've had to limit my Greek Orthodox fasting days. So yeah, but that's because I just it depends. Sometimes I'll do more fasts. Sometimes I do like some of the actual monks do, where they will basically do like pure fast, as they call it, where they cut out everything and it's just water. So yeah, I sort of Varied. I used to fast a bit more in the past, compared to now. So, but that's me. I mean, it depends what you're trying to do. Are you trying to lose weight? Are you trying to reset your immune system? There's a lot of good reasons for it. I mean, I periodically, for autophagy and for the reset of my immune system, I do those sort of an 80-hour fast every 3 months. So it's what I do. I'm a foodie. I do like my food. I don't like, going without food, which is, but that's me, Occasionally, as I said, look, my longest fast has been 6 days. So I know that other people have done longer fasts than that. I know Kitty, I think she did something like 14 or 16 days. I can't even remember, or 17 was it? Yeah, it was a long period of time that, it probably was 17, I think. It's a long period of time, and that you sort of really have to manage your electrolytes under those sort of circumstances. A couple of days, not a problem with the electrolytes. But if you're going out, especially over 72 hours, then it becomes an issue. 27, fuck me. That's nearly a month. That's a long time to fast, So, yeah, impressive, the amount of time. But, if you've got a lot of weight to lose, it can be helpful, but you really have to manage your electrolytes under those sort of circumstances. There's, you got 120 milligrams of, that you're losing in terms of magnesium every day. You're losing about 19. Sorry, I'm trying to remember now. What is it? I think it's 99 milligrams of potassium. So it is, hold on. I'll remember from the total figure from my own thing. So just give me a sec. So it's you're losing about 13. If you're 70 kilos, as an example, because you're losing 19 milligrams per kilo of body weight. So basically per 2.2 pounds of body weight you're losing, so you're excreting every day. So it's about 1,300. If you have a big steak, you'll pretty much get all the magnesium that you've lost. Potassium that you've lost. And if you also, big steak, you'll probably get the magnesium as well. Another good source is dairy. So milk is very high in potassium. So that's another good source. So in general, based on the loss of these minerals per day, per kilo of body weight, I was going to make a video of it, but now you know. So you don't really need these massive amounts that people say. As long as you're getting enough, any excess, you'll just excrete it. People go, I want more. No, you're just going to fucking excrete it. Your loss, the only time you need more is basically if you've become deficient. That means, let's say you fasted for a long time, you didn't manage your electrolytes, you lost a lot of fluids, or when you transitioned from a SAD diet to a keto diet, you lost massive amount of water retention, you flushed out a lot of your minerals, and then you go, okay, I need to put back those minerals. And then you would supplement for a short period of time, magnesium, potassium, and sodium and stuff like that. to get your levels back up, to get the homeostasis. And once you get the homeostasis, you just keep the sodium slightly up, because any excess sodium will just be excreted by the kidneys, just get dumped. Kidneys will go, oh, we've got plenty. We don't need to basically retain a lot. We don't even need to use a lot of energy, ATP. We don't even need to actually increase our cortisol, these hormones to retain the sodium in. So what causes problems to your kidneys? I wonder. And so when you do that, the consequence of that is that you basically end up, getting back to the homeostasis. And as long as you keep the sodium up and you get the amount out of your food that you excrete every day, you're never going to have a problem. So, I mean, I don't get leg cramps. I don't get any of this sort of stuff, but I keep my sodium up. There's even in this water here, there's a bit of salt. So I get enough in my food, in my diet, to maintain those minerals in, and then I keep enough sodium to maintain the homeostasis at those levels. So it's not complicated. It's not complicated stuff, guys. Yeah, look, that's fine. As long as you're getting enough calories every day. If you're getting what your body needs to function, it's not an issue. Remember, even when you eat meat, it takes a long time to basically extract nutrients. It can be in your system 6 hours, just pulling the stuff out of it. So why would you want to be overloading your body? Eat when you're hungry. Your body will tell you. If you feel hungry, eat a bit more. If you don't feel hungry, don't eat. It's not, that's why I say that even though I do a 16-8 most of the days, I may not really eat. I may have a coffee. I may have like a light snack because I just don't really feel that hungry. And then later in the afternoon, I may feel a bit hungrier, and then I'll have a big steak. So I listen to my body, and I just don't, So Shaw does the same thing. Yeah, look, a lot of people do, but make sure you're getting enough calories in. You're getting enough to support your endocrine system in general, not only your thyroid, but all your hormonal system. You need to have sufficient cofactors and sufficient stuff in there. The only time that we get issues Oops, there it is. I'll just have to put that on screen. Thanks, Loki. When you're a lost soul that can't deal with your cravings, repeat forever. Oh, that's an ice cream. Oh, that's under the belt, isn't it? Oh, it's nasty. Hey, that's got too much fat in it. Ray Pete wouldn't recommend that. It's ice cream. That's something I would recommend. Let's check the other one out. Oh, look, Cole, you're Cole Jenner. You're really bad. Ray Pete. Yeah, sounds like that. Yes, he's really degenerating, the poor old soul. You have to feel for him. But he's really, That's why it won't come on even on Danny's. You know, he avoids coming on like the plague because really he looks like shit. Thoughts on seawater therapy? No idea, never heard of it. But I would say that it's like look. I have heard that there are things like, you know, like in springs, like hot springs, where there was a lot of minerals in the water. In the sea, there was a lot of minerals as well. There's what are the other ones? There's the other one that they do as well. What is the other one called? I can't remember. So is it something? I suspect it's something similar to that. Yeah, that can be useful. That can be helpful in that regard. I don't know specifically about this method, so I can't really comment on this specific method. But you know, Epsom salts in your bathtub and getting in, you know, absorbing magnesium and other minerals and stuff like that. That's pretty good as well. So yeah. Look, anything that that provides some trace minerals and other things from the environment is probably a good thing. So it's, you know, I wouldn't poo-poo it. It would have some benefit, you know, especially for people on a SAD diet and a nutrient deficient diet. Yep, even more. So, and I suspect it's more catered towards most of the modern day ailment people. To increase stomach acid, would you take apple cider vinegar? Nope. You need more salt. You need more salt and meat. What happens is when you eat more meat, your body senses that and actually will increase the amount of acidity of your stomach. But also hydrochloric acid requires basically the chloride in the salt and the hydrogen ions. That's why they call them hydrogen pumps, you know, in your, you know, so this is what beta, what are they called? Proton pump inhibitors. They're called that because they are inhibiting those pumps. So when you combine meat with salt, with these, you know, these hydrogens being released in your stomach, you'll create good acidity, very good acidity. The pH of apple cider vinegar isn't as low as your stomach. Some people say could dilute it. I've got no evidence either way. Where apple cider vinegar and is probably good, not good for your enamel of your teeth, so I wouldn't be taking it every day, but it's pretty good at basically dealing with calcification in your kidneys. So if you've got kidney stones and stuff like that, those sort of issues, it's pretty good for that. And so is lemon juice as well, which is even more acidic. Lemon juice is even more acidic than apple cider vinegar. So it's far more acidic. So better to put a bit of lemon on your steak than apple cider vinegar. So yeah, in that regard, I think that comes from the Eric Berg's world of nutrition, with his multiple cups of, well, you probably need shitloads of apple cider vinegar to eat those green vegetables. You know, I'd never liked green vegetables. Even when in my low carb days, I avoided them. You know, The only green vegetable that I did consume in large amounts to my detriment was spinach, but cooked. Cooked, I could have it with bacon and eggs, but on its own, ugh. On its, with a lot of dairy products like in spinach pies and all that, I could have it, but on its own, no. Raw form, definitely not. So yeah, you probably need some. Eric's probably right about that. You probably need to douse it with so much apple cider vinegar so you don't, so you can actually eat that sort of shit. Do you think that baking soda tests for stomach acidity is valid? Possibly. There is no science. There is a lot of N of ones in that regard, but there's no real science to basically validate the testing method. But a lot of people swear by it in that regard. For sure it does lower your stomach acidity, which isn't a good thing if you're trying to eat. But if testing the sort of levels, it seems to, a lot of people seem to basically think that it does help them determine their stomach acid levels. I'm not sure. I think that it can be a problem, because a lot of people don't really know. They may be taking too much. They may not be consuming, are they doing it on an empty stomach? How are they doing it? What other food combinations are they putting? Because different foods have different response in terms of stomach acidity. So yeah, it's really hard, and really, until we really get proper studies on this, it's all anecdotes. It's all anecdotes. Exactly. Yeah, I know. So do I. I wish it would. It just gives me the absolute shits. Let alone it's not good for your teeth enamel. It's not a good thing. There's actually some studies in animals, not in humans, in animals, that shows that it can actually also cause bone demineralization. But again, what are these poor animals being fed? There's a lot of other confounding factors. So even those, I just say that is it a food that would have existed in nature before we had until the recent times? No. And it's problematic with your teeth as well, with teeth enamel. So why would you put your teeth at risk? No, I can't see any real basis for it. Best in slow cooker. I mean, look, some people put it in bone broth and stuff like that. I mean, I've got no problems if people are putting it in bone broths and stuff like that. But I know I have in the past, and my sister still does. But the extraction of calcium from bones for your broth is great, but drinking, yeah, exactly, yeah, it definitely helps, in breaking down. So exactly. So would you want to be gulping large amounts of it? Probably not, because some of it will get into your system. Now, will it cause some issues with your bones? I don't know. There's we don't have good enough science, but would you take the risk? Probably not. I wouldn't. I heard fermentation compound stimulates acid production in the stomach. Yep. So if you've basically like pickled cucumbers or stuff like that, would have that effect. So yep, that would help if that's what you're thinking. Thoughts on someone saying those who have intestinal permeability should limit bone broth because it's high in glutamic acid? Well, that's ridiculous. actually, these sort of substances are part of the type of aminos that are in collagen. So, yeah, it's nonsense, basically. Yeah. I mean, one other good thing about taurine is, and this is what happens as we get older, our capacity to biosynthesis taurine comes down. That's why I usually say to people, supplement. If you're over 40, you should be on at least 1 gram. If you're basically slightly older than that, probably a bit more. I mean, I'll take about 2, sometimes 3. It does also help with closing the tight junctions around the body. So, yes, taurine can be a very good amino acid in that regard. So I would consider that as well. But no, I mean, all these, glutamic acid you'll find in basically in eggs. You'll find in basically all these sort of substances. You'll find in the sort of collagen type rich aminos. The only time you would basically consider restricting glutamic acid would be in cases with cancer. Okay? Because basically it can be utilized as a fuel. That's the only, there's what is called the SLP sort of pathway that basically can actually utilize it. And so there are sort of glutamate inhibitors that basically can help with better outcomes of cancer. But anyone else, it's, it's sort of these type of collagen aminos are really good for, they are required. The only reason nasty cancer does utilize this, it actually eats away even some of the collagen in your body. It can actually really sort of take from the body. It actually will penetrate into other it interacts with a pericellular matrix of cells to basically penetrate through. We still don't understand it, how a lot of this sort of stuff, it's still there's a lot of myths in this. I mean, we've had in the low carb community for a long time people say, oh, you need some glucose because you need glycosylation of proteins. It's these glycans, that everybody talks about. But, what I call the pericellular matrix, that's how I call it. That covers everything because everything has glycans on it. Okay. So I just call it the pericellular matrix to keep it simple for everyone. And it's the correct terminology for the general description of the whole. It's also called glycoscience. And I have been reading up recently because people did ask me about it. And my knowledge was only in terms of the pericellular matrix, the signaling and stuff like that, and the sort of the negative charge and all sort of that. But I have looked recently into some of the information, and the reality is the science is shit. They are making a lot of assumptions and a lot of arguments with very little proof. Yes, there are signaling that is happening at the interaction between the actual cells, and there's communication between this pericellular matrix, these sugars, the glycans as they're called. But do we really understand the communication? No. Do we really know how to actually what it actually is going on? No. Do we see changes in morphology that then constitute some deterioration and all that? So is it the chicken and the egg? Is it happening first in them or later? I think later. rather than actually first. It's not you really fuck up things, and then there is changes in the morphology and the behavior of these glycans. So I think it has to do with signaling, or dysfunctional signaling, but we don't really understand it, so I'm still on the fence on a lot of the arguments and stuff like that. I've been looking at it recently, and I know Ivor did actually a thing, but I'm still not convinced on a lot of things. But in terms of what you said, nah, don't worry about it. Crap, just more nonsense. People peddling out there, and it's probably coming from the cancer angle. I mean, a small percentage of the population. I mean, if you got cancer, that's a different thing. But if you got cancer, I would, yes, there are certain things you can use to inhibit, some of these nutrients. So you can use certain herbs and stuff like that can actually inhibit, that are less problematic compared to some of the medication. But there are other strategies as well. If you do have cancer, come and see me. And metabolic water and other things and other strategies of fixing your mitochondria are much more important than some of this sort of stuff. This is a fuel thing, glucose and glutamate sort of fuel thing. So yes, reducing those fuels is important. Also, increasing ketones is important, like with a keto ester, to ramp up the energy for the body, but at the same time, get rid of the issues of energy needs, support the healthy parts of your tissue and stuff like that. Yep. So the fasting question for clearing out junk out of the cells. Yes, that's what it does. It actually all oxidation of molecules of food will create byproducts, and so they will create lipid and protein type byproducts, and they will build up in the actual cells, and you want to get rid of them. So this autophagy and upregulating certain enzymes that basically clear out this gunk is important. So we need to basically be, but we don't need to be constantly. We do get, from time restricted feeding, we get autophagy. Being in a low carb diet, we get autophagy. Exercising, we get autophagy. Deep, good sleep, we get autophagy. Some of our best autophagy happens while we're sleeping. So with good levels of melatonin, naturally produced. So if you're not producing good enough, turn off all your damn lights, sources, maybe get something to cover your eyes to properly basically produce a lot of darkness. So you will have better, deeper sleep. So these are the sort of strategies you want to be using, a number of things. So keep that in mind. Yes, impressive, my dear, impressive. Yes, I'd be in the fridge by the end of the week, like I was last time, 6 days, that was it. Yeah, that's impressive. Probably not as impressive as that guy that had to lose massive amounts of weight, but it's something that you really need to be careful. It's not something I recommend. It's very catabolic, very stressful on the body, and very hard to do if you're not managing your electrolytes properly. You could end up in the hospital. You also, if you're not getting enough fluids in and managing your electrolytes, you could be putting a lot of strain on different organs, especially your kidneys. So you really need to basically be managing it properly and all that. It's not something that should be done lightly, and not something that should be done on a regular basis either. It's far too much stressful on your body. So keep that in mind. But yes, it is impressive. The guy that did the longest period of fast was 3 over a year. I can't remember the amount of days exactly. Anybody can remember, please post it in the chat. But he basically didn't live that long. I think when you are far too catabolic for far too long, there can be problems potentially. But we don't really do we have any signs? Nope. That's an N of 1. We don't have any long-term dieters, and it could have been other factors as well that shortened his life. So we don't really know. So we need to be very careful, with these things. So use it. I know that using time-restricted feeding and some fasts through the year, most religions and most societies have done it here and there. There's a lot of societies that do like 3-day eating. Sorry. Let me just go back. That do fasting on a regular basis, a lot of societies. Now, there are even some tribes, this is I think the Amazon. I think they are in the Amazon, these people. And they do like every 3-day eating. So they will eat every 3rd day. So, and it works for them. They still have got reproductive success and everything else, but they will go from fasting for 2 days and then they will really feast on that 3rd day. I mean, they just sit and eat and eat and eat all day long. So for that 3rd day. And then they fast for 2 days. Seems to work for them. But I don't know the longevity information on them. So there is none. I've looked for it, but none. So can I say with certainty that it will give you longevity? No idea. I know short-term time-restricted feeding, some calorie restriction now and then, and some, fasting here and there seems to be to prolong life of a lot of populations that do that practice that. But excessive amounts or these, long periods of abstinence of food, is there any proof for that? None. So probably has some benefits, but for those populations, there could be other factors as well. There could be other factors in their environment. There could be also mitigating that. There could be pathogens that are exposed to a lot of these tribal people are exposed to a lot of pathogens. They do die from pathogens that can lower the lifespan as well. So it's a lot of that longevity stuff, and a lot of that is very confounded, highly confounded. So yeah, it's problematic at best. G'day, Chris. Good to see you. Same here, Harry. 6 days, my longest. Yep. First meal was sardines. Yep. Had a craving for them. Oh, okay. Yeah. My sort of first food when I came out was just a broth. But, sardines. Yeah. Oh, craving for sardines, first food. Yeah, interesting. I've never had that. I've had cravings for sardines now and then, and certain sort of seafood, especially things like squid and octopus, which I haven't had for a while, and that I have a bit of a craving for. But out of a fast, no, it's usually, the first thing I actually go for. I know it's bad. The first thing I go for is a damn coffee with a lot of cream in it. Is the first thing that I go for. So yeah. And I've even done cases where first thing I've had is milk, and people say, "Oh, what about the gut permeability?" Well, it didn't cause me any discomfort, but obviously, if you do have issues, don't drink milk. Thoughts on digestion? Bitters or HCl? I would use HCl. It's easier, just use a HCl, which has got digestive enzymes. And so you combine digestive enzymes with HCl and also bile. And so bile salts, because usually people that have got low stomach acid usually have got, most cases I find, have issues with their gallbladder, and or generally there's too much issues with their liver. So they need to fix all that. And that's where you'd have something like that. You'd put in choline as well, that exports fat out of the liver. So you'd add more choline, about 1 gram minimum, probably go a bit higher, but don't go too high, because you may induce a lot of, let's say, loose stools. So, look, because a lot of people are working, so you have to take that into consideration. So go slower, sort of marathon. You don't want to be causing yourself issues at work. So yeah, but if you're on leave and you're at home and you don't really have to worry about the toilets close by, you could probably go for a bit higher in that regard and sort of try to push through. But yeah, it depends on your circumstances. Yeah, so I'm not sure about whether it's who that's about, sure, but anyway, I'll take it. Thank you. 27 in hardcore, mostly I've done, is 10, and that was enough. Yes. So you've done 10 days of fasting. Not bad, bird brain. That's pretty good for a bird. You mean nothing to peck for 10 days? God, that must have been a problem. Did you basically get your beak sharpened after? Hopefully you did. Okay, yeah. 382 days. Angus, yeah, Angus Barrier. Yeah, he was, the Scottish bloke. Yes, impressive. God. Longest I've done is 6 days. That's it. That was hard. I really wish they would remove all doctors' programs like Dr. Oz and the doctors off the air. Ridiculous nonsense. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's just all they're doing is just peddling, big pharma solutions. They're not actually dealing with real food issues or real health issues or stuff like that. It's all just big pharma nonsense. It's crap. So yes, unfortunately, that's what it's like. This happened to me before when I was hospitalized in the mid-20s. 70% of my air fell out 4 months later, and then started to grow back 4 months. So, okay. So what sort of diet were you on for your hair to fall out? So because a lot of people on 70% of, a lot of people, like I know people that have, vegans that have told me their stories and stuff, like the ex-vegans, that is, and they had, I suspect that was what you were doing, Kitty. You were eating a species inappropriate diet at the time. Dye my hair purple so it looks more there than it currently is. Yeah, look, you need nutrition. Your body needs protein for all the tissue. I mean, your bones, they're primarily made of protein matrix. It's all this collagen of your bones. It is pretty much what we call, and then it's mineralized protein matrix. So that's the word that they use, protein matrix. And then it's mineralized, and that's what gives it rigidity. But if you're not getting enough proteins in, as I said, 3 things. If you're deficient in phosphorus, fuck that myth about phosphorus. Too much phosphorus will get rid of your calcium out of your bone. Nonsense. This was a clinical study, people locked up and all that. Phosphorus. You reduce the amount of phosphorus, you got a problem. You reduce the amount of protein, you got a problem. You reduce the amount of sodium, you got a problem. So these things seem to work. Now, do we fully understand all the mechanisms? No. But when we basically remove these things and we are deficient in any one of these 3 or all 3, we notice more sarcopenia and more osteoporosis. So, yeah, I would say those who argue against animal foods and salt, they're talking shit. Not based on science, based on nonsense and myths. Plenty of myths out there. Anyway, Harry, how would you go about rebalancing the body's intracellular and extracellular fluids? Drinking water with salt or mix of electrolyte works. Thank you. What I mentioned earlier about basically getting the electrolytes up, supplementing for a period of time, and then getting your sodium to a good level, and then making sure that you're actually getting those minerals in the food. So let's take a look. Okay. Okay, let me just put that on. Share. Okay. Now let's look at potassium, for instance. We're going to ignore the RDAs completely and all that in that regard. So let's see salmon here. So excretion factor per kilo body weight. So for a 70 kilo person and 70 kilo, we're talking about somebody who's 154, pounds. So somebody which is sort of considered the average weight of most of people. Okay, so that's 70 kilos. So go back to 70 times 19. That is 1,300. So how much salmon do we need to basically get the requirements? So, fuck me. Divided by 628 times 100. So we need 212 grams, which is a serving basically, of this meat of salmon to basically get our requirements for the day. So times, that 28 point, hold on. Let me just go back. Divide that by 28.33333 for an ounce. That basically means 7.5 ounces of salmon. So somebody who's 70 kilos, to replace the excretion amount of potassium out of their system, they need 7.5 ounces of salmon, or 212 grams in the metric system. Okay. So milk, as an example, glass of milk, 2 glasses of milk, you're done. So, as an example. So if I was to, and we can look at other things. So let me just go to, oh, don't do that to me. Fuck. Okay, high foods in potassium. Actually, go back and open it up here. So I won't hit the other tabs because some of the other tabs have a tendency. These are a lot of brand names, and we'll go for the common ones, which is basically foods. Okay, so dairy's pretty good, as we know. I'll just hit it for a moment. I'll just show you guys. So we're going to look at goat's milk. There's all sorts of things here. So fried eggs. So let's say that 1,300 amount. Okay, so let's say we've got, that's 100. So that's 2 eggs. So let's say we have 4 eggs as an example. So minus 152 minus 152. That's your 4 eggs. So then we go minus, let's say, Harry loves his brie. So he has 100 grams of brie. So minus 152. So he's had his little brie, little prick. And then basically, let's say we've gone for some milk as well, which a glass was 700, so if I go minus 720 something, so it's fuck all, I'm doing pretty well, aren't I? A glass of milk, 100 or 3.5 ounces of brie, and 4 eggs. And we haven't even hit the meats yet. So let's just go to the meats. So meats. So I haven't had any meat for the day as well. How awful. Fuck, And then, I'm going to have some bacon, definitely. So if I have some bacon, fuck, I'm already overdosing on potassium. Fuck me. Having too much. Just kidding. And here's basically 100 grams. So, look at 100 grams of, let's say, grilled top steak. So 435 times, let's say I'm going to have 1.1 pounds of beef. So that's about 4. What is it? Fuck me. God. Calculations are shit. So 1.1. So it's about basically 500 grams. So 500 grams, if I have a big steak, so 5 times 4, I'm already over the amount that I need for the excretion rate, which is, 1,300. So, I'm already nearly double the amount that I'm actually excreting out of my body. So if I'm actually using sufficient sodium to keep my electrolytes in, my body's going to say, oh, my body's going to end up taking in. So I will basically lose in my feces, I will lose more of my potassium because the body's going, we've got plenty. Plenty's coming in, plenty's being held in. We don't need as much, so I'll take less in and the rest will go into the feces. So the body will manage this by, these fluids. So as you can see, you can get plenty on foods to basically sort out, what are the best sort of requirements and that sort of stuff. And I'll just throw that in so you guys can actually go to your heart's content and work out, and remember 19 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. Okay, so you can work out for your own weight and all that sort of stuff. Now, had enough of potassium. I've just basically had far too much. I need to go and take a shit to get rid of most of it. Just kidding. Got a joke about these things. And food list. And now let's say we've also got the magnesium side. Everybody wants a fucking supplement with everything. And so, look at tuna. I could have basically 200 grams of tuna, and I usually have about 350 grams of tuna, and I will get all my magnesium that I need that I've excreted, like 120 milligrams. So just from that one single food of tuna, and I love tuna anyway. So, and all these other fucking foods, in almonds, what a joke. It's chelated. We know that its bioavailability is extremely poor. So it's not like in animal products. It's just shit, So, we can have a bit of, yogurt, get a bit more. And then we will go to our special program, which is much better. Go down, further down. Yeah, they do talk about oxalates here. High oxalate almonds may inhibit some of magnesium absorption. We know it fucking does it, and that's a PubMed study. So at least she's basically does put some of this stuff up, which is okay. She tends to be a bit of a vegetarian. She's sort of and all that. And here's a study, basically, fraction of magnesium absorption is significantly lower in human subjects from a meal serving with oxalate-rich vegetables, spinach, as compared with a meal served with kale vegetables with low oxalate content. So this study is actually looking at that. I think it's freely available from the Cambridge site. I think you can get the PDF or whatever. I'll throw that in there for any of my dear vegan friends. Well, you'll have to go from the PubMed because it's too long. It doesn't actually fit in the damn thing. So you'll have to go from the PubMed thing to the other one. Anyway, so I'm just going to get rid of all that because that's not what we're here for. We want to go to our special ranking tools. Okay, again, 100. We have a look at, fuck the vegan food. So we'll go to meats. So as you can see, that's 100, So let's say pork, it would, so if I have, let's say, a nice pork chop, now that fucking sounds good to me. And I go, I'm going to definitely pig out. I'm getting more than 120 that I'm excreting out, as you can see. Compared to what I'm excreting out, just from that meal, I'm nearly getting about 46% extra. Highly bioavailable. You take some of these supplements, people go and take 200 milligrams of a magnesium supplement, and they probably only get about 30 from that supplement in bioavailable form. Here, I'm having a beautiful pork chop, making me hungry. And basically, I've just got 46% more than my excretion rate, than what I would excrete. Yes. So I think I'm doing okay. I want to basically, let's see, can I loosen my stools even further by taking more? I knew some of you would love that. So we've had a meet, I've indulged them. Oh, don't do that to me. Oh, for fuck's sake. I hate it when this site does this. Now, I can't neglect my dairy products. So, I mean, just look at I would not, as I said, you don't need these sort of supplementation things. So let's see, hard cheeses like goat cheese and all that. So that's 100, which is 3.5 ounces. So there's your 54. So, the other one was 175. So basically, I've had my 100 grams of goat cheese. I've had my pork steak. Yes. Yummy. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Let me just put it over here for a sec. And let's just go down. Actually, good is not too bad either. Look, it's about 13, like fried eggs. Okay, I've had 4 eggs. So 4 eggs will basically is 26. Because remember, it's 100 grams that we're looking at. So 1 egg is about 50 grams. So 4 eggs is 200 grams. And that is 7 ounces. Okay, so we're clear with the American crowd. So I will have 4 eggs plus 26. Okay. Now, as you can see, it's more bioavailable when you cook them rather than when they're raw. So even whipped cream, I'd probably have about 100 grams, sometimes up to 200 grams based on my, if I have extra coffees, usually 2 coffees. So it's usually 150 grams each. So I would basically, let's say, we'll just go 11. I've had less coffee for the day, so I'll just go 11, and has she got the regular milk? Whole milk. Okay. Whole milk. Well, the raw milk's got more, so, but let's just go on this. So I don't need that. So it's 5 times, because I usually have about, a glass of milk, which is 16 ounces, and it's usually about, half a litre of milk that I usually have. So that is basically already, as you see, I'm nearly up to 300 milligrams. Most supplements are 300 milligrams that everybody gets, because I already get a nutrient deficient diet of refined carbs that have got no nutrition. And so basically, let's say I have the milk as well, which is 5 times that, which is, 50 plus 50. So just from that, I've got my 300. You need about 300 to 400, they usually say. I mean, I've got more than, I've basically got, if I divide my excretion rate divided by 120, I've basically got about 2.6 times what I'm excreting every day. Okay? So I've got more. What will happen is the body won't take it all in. A lot of it will end up in the bowl. Exactly. Through your feces. So as you can actually realize very quickly, if you eat animal foods and which are not chelated with a whole lot of anti-nutrients, and you basically maintain good homeostasis with good levels of sodium, because remember, our people in the past never had electrolyte issues. Nobody had electrolyte issues or problems. They used to eat all pre-refrigeration, all these salted foods, and everybody was doing much fine. Thank you very much. So absolutely not an issue whatsoever. So in that regard is people are just talking nonsense, talking shit. They're selling you supplements. They are taking your hard-earned cash out of your pocket. They are putting their hand in your pocket and taking your money and telling you, you need this, you poor fuck. No, you don't. They've just screwed you. They've basically put on a glove. They've bent you over and basically, you felt good for a while, but really they just extracted some money out of you. And, guys, you don't need it. There's plenty of food, and you can use this site to go through using these tools to basically, work out what animal products and what combinations, and you'll find that in most cases you don't even have to use this site, because if you're eating most of these sort of foods, you go, yeah, I'm getting more than enough. Stop worrying. That's what you need to do. You need to stop worrying. Because I've promised that I'm going to do this sort of video about the, now I've done it here. I've explained it. I'll just clip this out, and I'll basically create a separate video little thing for electrolytes and stuff like that for, for somebody specific to be able to refer to and all that. That's what Bart told me. He said, you've got so much information in your live streams, just go through and clip things out and make little videos of it. And he's probably right, because I'll never get around doing the other stuff, with a day job. Yep. Anyway, let's move on. So I hope that was explanatory enough about how to maintain good electrolytes by eating real food and not really worrying too much about all the idiots out there that are basically trying to sell your product and basically telling you that you will, if you don't take this little pill, you will be very sick, and you'll grow an ingrown horn through your dick or anus. It's usually the other way around. They're sticking it to you. So, and taking away your hard-earned cash. Anyway, let's move on. Do carnivores need less vitamin K since predominant form is MK4? Yep. Look, we need we get some of the K1 we will get in some foods. We will also get from bacteria that will produce it. So, and the liver can play around with the different menaquinones and actually, if it's got more K1, convert them into menaquinones. If it's got less, extract more. So it can play around with that. It is the liver that is the key organ that is playing, that determines how much, clotting factors are produced, or how less clotting factors are produced, and all the conversions of the menaquinones and stuff like that. So most people, if they're eating a species appropriate diet, will get enough MK4 from liver and dairy, and some from meat. Meat is poorer. Organ meats are much richer, and so are dairy products. So, but if you've got an underlying condition, there are reasons, to decalcify, because you've got a lot of calcification, because you've been on a species inappropriate diet and stuff like that, then yes, supplementation is a good thing to be utilized. But if you don't, then you'll probably get them more than sufficient. Eggs are another great source of MK4, so yeah. So you should be fine in that regard, unless you need to deal with something. I'm not trying to sell anyone anything, because there's plenty of good nutrition in animal foods. So, if I ever start selling stuff, just unsubscribe, because I'm a charlatan. Because basically anybody that tells you can't get good nutrition from animal foods is a charlatan, is lying to you, that's selling you something. Supplements are useful to deal with deficiencies. When you got a deficiency, you need a supplementation to fix the deficiency. Once you fix the deficiency, you need to be eating species appropriate food to maintain good homeostasis of these minerals and vitamins and everything else in your body. And then your body will love you for that and work. Anyway, last time I lost shitloads of hair. I was going through a rough divorce from an abusive jerk. Yep, that can, stress is a big factor that people lose hair. And people are very stressed these days. Being low sodium isn't a good thing, because stress hormones are actually down-regulated, suppressed slightly by sodium. But also, so in that regard as well. But I wasn't eating at all. Lost 35 pounds. Yeah, 2 months. Yeah, look, rapid weight loss, stress, and all those sort of things can actually cause those sort of things. Yeah. There are plenty of jerks out there. You're right in that regard. As my father would say, you lay a hand on a woman, you are not a man, a real man, but basically a boy or a coward, as my father would say. So, yep, we'll move on. Yeah, look, it's rough going through that, As I say, guys, even to the men on this thing, you basically people need to be respectful to each other. People need to basically discuss things. There's always going to be issues in relationships. There's always going to be issues in life. A real adult is one who's a responsible adult. In a tribal society, you have the other tribal members coming in an extended family coming in to stop things like this, because it's unacceptable. At the end of the day, people need to be together and work together, and be together because they feel things for each other. You can't force somebody to love you. You can't force somebody to stay with you. You can't force somebody, it doesn't work. People need to voluntarily, and be responsible. It's mostly people that are irresponsible that basically misbehave in this way, because they are jerks for that reason, because they don't want to take responsibility. They don't want to basically, pour their head in, and do what's required to make a family work, or a relationship work, So, yeah. And there are some loose women out there that basically, just as bad on the other spectrum, but, completely irresponsible, don't give a shit, and very wasteful, and, cause grief, in other regards. People, you gotta be the key, a pillar of relationships is having respect for each other, and also being responsible, because a relationship can't work unless you're respectful and responsible. The love and all that. I've had relationships where I loved the woman, but I walked away because basically I just couldn't live with that person. They were, I'm not going to go into details, but they were basically, stressing me out to, beyond belief. And so, and it was their way or the highway. And so fine, if you're going to be like that. But the thing is, a relationship is not possessiveness. People are not your property, so good relationships, foundations. If you look at people that have got good foundational, is because the two people are respectful to each other, are responsible adults to run a good family, and at the same time, have balanced friendship with love. When you balance friendship with love, you usually end up being responsible and all these other things. And when you do that, it works. And also the other thing, guys, women loved, a bit of flirting and stuff like that. So you need to be flirtatious with women. It makes them happy. And for women, they need to basically, show an interest in their guy now and then, so he doesn't feel like he's just basically, neglected. He's the offsider. This is how good relationships are maintained and work. It's a bit of a balance. Anyway, this is a nutritional site. Let's move on. Harry loves the ice cream. Oh, yes. Nothing like having something creamy. Actually, I did have an ice cream yesterday. It's my Saturday indulgence. I just have an ice cream on Saturdays, every Saturday. So I look forward to Saturdays. It's the only day I can really indulge, just get stuck into the ice cream and stuff like that. So, but I did notice when I actually had put on about 5 or 6 kilos through the early parts of home detention, working from home. And, the fridge is right next door. So you tend to basically be in the fridge most of the day and don't do enough exercise and, tend to nibble on things. And so, I put on, and then I recently I've taken all that weight off. Well, most of it anyway. I've taken off out of that 5 kilos. I've taken 4 out. I've probably got but it's neither here or there, to be honest. But it was primarily by cutting out the ice cream through the week. Yeah, I had to do it. So and upping slightly my exercise as well. So that pretty much did it. So I'm a foodie. I love food. It comes from my Greek culture. I do love food. And sometimes I overindulge. I'm very rarely on a calorie deficit. So I have to do a bit more exercise, to deal with the extra calories. I have to avoid certain foods that I do indulge in now and then. And I know it, So as I said, I'm not perfect. I'm not here to basically promote myself as a perfect human that does it always right. It doesn't fuck up. I fuck up plenty of times, even in nutrition and many other aspects of my life. The difference is I'm here to basically promote the good science and, upend all the bullshit. That's what I'm here, So most of the people out there usually that put a persona on are usually fake anyway, Every human cheats, on diets. Every human does certain indiscretions. We all fuck up here and there. It's just normal humans. It's when we can pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and then basically move on, and get back to where we need to be. We all have our stress moments, our relationship issues, or whatever else, and they do play havoc with our minds, our bodies in different ways. So yeah, look, I'm glad you're out of it, Chill. I'm truly am glad that you're out of it, and you're in a better spot. Take care. You're a beautiful woman. So, and I suspect you've got your current partner's a good person that that is a sort of person that you always should have had. Anyway, let's move on. The keto ice cream lately. Oh, yes, I probably need to get that ice cream machine that I've got and actually do something myself. So Yes, that's what I need to do, rather than buying the stuff that's got more sugar in it. So then I could indulge in more ice cream actually with less sugar. Sounds good. I should probably do that. We'll cycle through a few of these. Use Dead Sea salts, best stuff in the world for a bath. Okay. Oh yeah. It's very high in minerals. It's not only the salts. That means you can literally, even if let's say, if you've never swum in your life, you can't swim, let's say, and you go to the Dead Sea and you jump into that, you'll float. You will float. So, because it's very hard to basically end up drowning in that, because it's so salty, it just holds you up. The water just holds you up. So it's probably, I didn't realize actually. Do send me a link, please. Where do you get it? I would like to try it. I mean, I use Epsom salts in the bath and really sort of just have my frappe, which is like a coffee, a Greek coffee, the cold coffee in summer, where they make the cold coffee, the shaken coffee and all that. And so I will have that. Oh, fuck. I know I did the hand thing, didn't I? I know T1 and T2 are going to have a field day with it. Fuck me. And basically I'll have my frappe on the side and I'll have my Epsom salt sort of bath, warm bath, and I just sit in there with on the side and just indulge. I used to do that on Sunday mornings. I can't do it now. Too much YouTube stuff. I have to do it on another day. Usually now I tend to do it on like a Saturday evening, so before I go to bed. It was much more enjoyable doing on Sunday mornings. Oh, anyway. Shit happens. I just have to try and get myself early into bed on a Saturday, which is hard. Yes. Yes. Some of us still enjoy the boobies. We never grew out of that child sort of I won't go into it. You know what I mean? Did you do interesting things with them? Did you caress them? I bet you did. Actually, when I was morbidly obese before I had my heart condition, I actually, had big titties as well. Yes. That was 10 years ago. Fuck me. Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah, these are characters. Yeah, tell us, T2. What cup size? We want to know. Will they double D? Oh god, I picked that, didn't I? I didn't look. Honestly, I didn't look. Oh, that was coincidence. Repeat stuff. I'm pretty much praying that someone grows up to the task and does a better job than Ray, and everyone else perhaps puts a new light on everything. Look, Sam, I've tried to debate some of these people and they just won't. They just basically avoid me like the plague. And I've even gone after the master, but But pretty much his crowd are they won't actually debate you. They say, oh, we're just doing most of them, we're just doing a website. We're putting I don't debate people. I put the science out. We do science. You guys don't. So why debate? That's how they play it in that way to avoid debating. At least I'll tell you one thing. The vegans talk shit, but at least they'll debate you. These guys won't. So I've tried a whole lot of methods. I even tried bringing Bart on to try and entice them into debating all sorts of things. So I've tried everything. They just don't want to. Simple as that. They just basically are in their own little echo chamber and just sit there talking amongst themselves and just talking shit, and they won't even show you science. They just tell you things. They say, oh, this will do this, this will do that. But when you actually do a background check and go through, let's say you go through PubMed and you go and look at these sort of stuff and you go, hold on, these guys were saying this, but there's a whole lot of studies that are saying this, this, and this. And it really, eventually you realize they're full of shit. Excrement. Isn't that right, Tito? Extra fatty, T1. Oh, extra fatty with big tits. Oh, God, that's nasty. Actually, a mate of mine, I call him Fatso, and I call him ex-Fatso now and things like that because he's lost quite a bit of weight. So, yeah. So I was, yes. He calls me a few things as well. But I won't tell you guys, especially these fucking trolls. Couldn't trust them. But I really don't think that fructose is the devil it's made out to be. Why don't you, Sam? Look, it's small amounts are not going to kill you, okay? But it is 7 times more glycating than glucose. So it will glycate your insides. That means it will actually cause a lot of stickiness in your cell membranes, in your endothelial cells and all this, compared to anything else. So it's far more glycating than just plain glucose. So that's why milk isn't a problem. It's a glucose. Even galactose the milk sugar turns into glucose through a 4-stage enzymatic pathway. So anything that's glucose can make you fat, but can't give you a fatty liver. You can only get fatty liver from fructose, from alcohol, which uses the same pathway as fructose, or from engaging the Randall cycle and forcing the body to convert. See, normally, if you're eating high carbohydrates, your body will convert about 3% of that to fructose. But you only need a small percentage of fructose anyway. You don't need, first it's not a requirement, but some of the glycosylation that can actually happen can use some of these sugars. But when you're basically, let's say, in a state of insulin resistance, you can convert up to 10 times that. So you can end up not with 3%, but with 30%. So you can see how more glycating it can actually, the environment can become from a high carbohydrate diet in an insulin resistant state, like somebody with diabetes or whatever. But fructose on its own in small amounts, no, it's not the devil made out, but it isn't good nutrition. It's not an essential nutrient. There's essential requirements for some glucose, for certain types of functions in the brain, for your red blood cells, small amounts are required, and your body can produce that through gluconeogenesis. You don't require to eat it. But when it comes to fructose, there's no requirements. And as I've explained, when I did chat this morning, I don't know whether you saw it, with Pim Johnson, as her name is. Let me pronounce it properly. And I actually talked about the Robert Lustig study on fructose metabolism, where they did an isocaloric. Kids had the same sort of level of, junk food. Some of it had just glucose, and the others had some fructose in there. The ones with the fructose continued to have fatty liver. The ones with the glucose only didn't. They reduced their fatty liver over time. Glucose, fats, and proteins are things that the body can use. Fructose is not an essential nutrient. What the body does is it converts it to fat and fatty droplets. And if there's not enough choline in the system to export it out to the fat cells, it stays in the organs. And usually fructose will actually generate more fat in the organs. And basically all that visceral fat comes from fructose. So if you want to have the more dangerous type of fat, which is the one that actually generates more, inflammatory cytokines and pushes up inflammatory biomarkers, fructose is your choice. So no, that is why people, calling it the devil, probably I would use that name for seed oils, refined seed oils, which have got far more damaging effects to the body. But fructose comes second. So that's why I consider, and the highest carbohydrate the carbohydrate with the highest amount of deuterium is fruit. Rice is much lower, even starch, normal starch, potatoes, cereals, grains, and stuff like that. Wheat products are much lower in deuterium compared to fruit. Fruit is higher, so, it's basically not what you want in your system, Sam. Not a good thing. It will really hurt you. So don't listen to Salad Boy and many of the others out there. They're talking shit. Fructose is not essential. And when you put kids on a sad diet of only glucose or only fruit or one with a lot of fructose in it, and you see these dramatic changes in, their health, their liver health, that should tell you something that, you don't want to be getting fructose in. We had very little access to fruit. It was seasonal. And then refined sugars, very little, because basically, you couldn't extract sugars. It took a long time to basically industrial revolution to develop the extraction methods to be able to get out of sugar cane and beets to get sugar, to extract it out of plants. Up until then, we didn't have. The only sugar that we had available was seasonal, and it was a bit of honey here and there that was used. Most of our existence, it's been glucose, fats, and proteins. And even glucose isn't essential as much. And if you have too much in combination with pushing up insulin and all that, you're going to end up storing more of it. So not a good thing. You just end up converting it to triglycerides, exporting it out. If you don't use it because you're sedentary or whatever, you'll end up storing it. So what can happen is on a high glucose diet or engaging, you will basically become fatter. You can actually see some of these, like those big mamas, in Russia that eat a lot of potatoes. Those women are big, fat. It's all subcutaneous fat. They are fat, but they're stocky and strong and all that. They can lift whole logs, those women. So they're not unhealthy because it's subcutaneous fat, not visceral fat. It's not fat in the organs, that fructose, because it primarily comes from starch. So yes, they're probably eating too much starch and fattening up and increasing their fat storage for a rainy day, but they're not basically metabolically unhealthy because they're still moving around doing a lot of physical activities. So, that big subcutaneous fat isn't necessarily, it's not a good thing, but it's not as, somebody who can be thin, like a tofu, thin on the outside, fat on the inside, and it's all visceral. It's around the organs because they don't have a lot of fat storage capacity like a lot of the Asians, and it ends up becoming all this visceral fat and in their organs. That is what causes massive amounts of insulin resistance, health problems, and whatever else, diabetes and everything else. So once you run out of fat storage, then you become diabetic and have all these other problems. So no, fructose I would not recommend any amount of fructose to anyone, unless they were my enemy, so it may not be the absolute devil, but at the same time, it's pretty close to being one of his demons. We will repeat. Yes, they are misguided people. They are very much. Yes. The only downside with that, these two remember so much, and yes, you will get the experience of being trolled now and then. Isn't that right, boys? I learned about the glycocalyx dies off within the presence of high blood sugar. Yep. They can collapse them down for up to 6 hours. So that is the pericellular matrix of your endothelial cells, your arteries. The little hairline fractures that have got a negative charge and keep all the stuff from sticking to, yes. So yeah, it definitely does. Sugar has that wonderful effect and then creates a lot of stickiness in there as well. So, and since fructose is 7 times more glycating, why would you? Yeah, she's probably gone. You'll probably hear this tomorrow when you see the rest of it. Thanks for being here, and take care and look after yourself. And I'm glad you're with somebody better than the past jerk. Anyway, we will move on. We'll move on through some of these lovely people. G'day, Harrod. Yeah, it was about that guy. Yeah, the Scottish guy. Very interesting. I need to go too. Okay. You need to go. Get some sleep. Fuck, almost 3. That's, yes, that is very late. You must be in the UK. Yes, get to sleep. Get to sleep. No, what am I saying? Nah. I'm confusing myself about the time differences. Yeah, probably. No, it must be. What is it? I think it's what's London time. Yeah, 4. Yeah, that was about an hour ago. Yeah, so yes, trouble must be in the UK somewhere in the British Isles. Okay. You missed the comment before, the one that I explained this. My hair is currently falling out from stress. Not sure if it was fast or losing my dad. Could be a combination. Stress. You're adding. Look, some people can fast longer and not lose their hair. Some people can, because they may have other stresses in their life. I I mean, I know you've got a pretty good diet now, so the nutrient density of your diet, I mean, you'd still have some stores there to basically support. But the quickest way to basically, I usually say the quickest way, if you want to restore your hair, quickest way is getting nutrient density in. Eggs are a great source because they've got biotin. Because you basically need things like zinc, biotin, selenium, all these sort of things to basically build hair, good hair, copper, and stuff like that. So I would basically look at some seafood and eggs, put a bit more into your diet to help restore all that. So that's what I would do. Because you may be slightly, because of stress, sometimes you can deplete some of these other minerals as well. So your storage levels may be lower, especially after doing 27-day fast, then losing your dad and all these sort of things coming together, other stresses and all that. Yeah, it's probably a lot of those factors together that have contributed to it. So... Oh, you're allergic to eggs. Oh, damn. Okay, take a biotin supplement. You need to get biotin in there. Let me just take a look. What other sources? Because I've never really looked. I should basically. Let me just... Okay. Oh, what is this? Okay, B7 biotin. Let me just put this up for Kitty. So look at biotin. And that was London time. Okay. Now, just go back because I can't. Does she have it here? Where's she got it? Let me just see if I can find it. Because she used to have it in her lists. Oh, that's just all vitamins. Okay. Okay. So we'll just go back to this. Come on. Okay. So we got rid of that. So as you can see, 21 micrograms. So usually I said about the people take about 4. So 1 times... I'm being an idiot. Obviously, it's 42. Now, let's look at other foods. I know liver is a very good source of biotin. So in meats, we should get liver. She's got nothing in meats. Well, that's a bit of a oops for her. Yeah, she doesn't have a good range on the biotin stuff. Let's just go. Go to that, because then I'll be able to find the other link. Okay, for that. And then take that out, go to the fact sheet. Go to the professional one. That has better information. The consumer one is useless. It's all the Mickey Mouse shit. Okay, so as you can see, you need about 30 odd micrograms. Now, obviously, with just 4 eggs, you're done. Even 3 eggs, you're done, which is divided by 4 times 3. So you've got your RDAs just from 3 eggs. So that is what I recommended to my sister. So as you can see, liver, 3 ounces of liver, 3 ounces of salmon, pork is 3.8. So you can combine a few foods here. So hamburger patties, 3.8. So if you basically, let's say you were going the, not the salmon route, you're just going the standard meat route. How are you with milk, Kitty? Are you okay with milk or? Because of you can look at that. I primarily get my So look, these are probably the 2 better options in that regard. I'll see what else she's got in other. Go away! Why is it doing it? Damn, I don't know what gets. It doesn't get stuck on the other ones, just this one for some damn reason. Okay, so let's just look at the other dairy products that are out there. So that's all eggs. Let's hit the dairy products. No, she doesn't have much in terms of that stuff. Yeah, it's unfortunate it's not a full list. You may have to basically try and see if you can find a better list. I mean, yogurt and milk, they don't have a lot. Like a cup is quite low, as you can see. Tuna, not too bad in that regard, but it's really pork, meat. It's really these are the top ones, really. So go away. So if you have 3 ounces of liver, for instance, every. Okay. So straight milk gives me the runs. I eat soft cheese like brie. Okay, so you'll get a bit from brie, but ultimately you probably have to rely on something like beef liver. That's probably what you're probably relying on, because you can't get it from eggs. I mean, I eat quite a bit of eggs, and so that's how it works for me. And I know the Asians have a tendency of eating about 3 eggs a day as well. Like every single meal, they have egg with it. Like if you're in Indonesia or places like that, and you have the sort of, oh, sorry, I should have turned that off. And you basically, you have these sort of combinations of foods. It's usually wrapped up the traditional way. So you'd have a bit of rice, a bit of vegetables, and some meat product, and on top of that they would whack a fried egg on that. So everybody probably has about 2 to 3 eggs a day in Indonesia. Traditionally, that's what they would have had. So they rely on chicken meat and chicken eggs, and some fish as some of their primary sort of sources. They get good MK, even though they don't eat a lot. They didn't traditionally eat dairy or stuff like that. They did get a lot of MK4 from eggs, and also, well, primarily from eggs, some organ meats, as well. They would get some stuff like that. They probably got some menaquinones from some not processed, some fermented foods. But their main source of MK4 would have come from chicken breasts. Chicken meats are much higher in MK4 than even all the other meats, animal products. So they would have got good levels of biotin from the eggs. They would have got good MK4. So when you look at traditional diets, people are getting a lot of good nutrients, as long as they were eating ancestry and nothing processed and crap. May have not been completely optimal, and that's why they were very short. They weren't very large in size because they didn't have enough sufficient calories or protein in their diet to support bigger bodies, which is another factor. But yeah, I would, things like 3 ounces. But if you're looking at, let's say you're having 400 grams of 28.3. So that's 14. Let's say you're doing 15 ounces of meat. For argument's sake, divide that by 3. That's 5 times. So let's say it's like burgers. So times 3.8. So you're up to 19, as you can see. So let's say you're getting 19 of biotin. So times that by 7, that's 133. So let's say 7 times 30 minus 133. So you're left with 77 additional requirements. So divide that by 30.8. That's 2 times 3. So about 7.5 ounces of basically beef liver. So if you had basically 400 grams or 15 or nearly 15 ounces of meat every day, plus some liver once a week or twice a week, of 4 ounces each time or something like that, you're good to go with your biotin. So that's pretty much it. G'day, Bart. Want to come on, mate? Or not? Actually, you're late. You're late, mate. Dusters for you. Dusters. So that is our biotin sort of options. So, you can get it from your food guys in that regard to support your hair. So that's another thing. I get it primarily. I get plenty. I usually get, because I'm eating 4 eggs a day. So yeah. So pretty much that just gives you 40 just from the eggs, let alone other foods that I eat. I'm getting sometimes double the RDI. So yeah. Okay, you're about to eat something? Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Yeah, so bloody hell, did we? Yeah. Much lower. And at the same time, there's a lot of water, and that's deuterium depleted water. As long as the cow was eating on grass and getting its moisture from the grass, and which is deuterium depleted from UV radiation. So that's pretty much it. I've already discussed this earlier. So I think it was on Pim's. Go and check out Pim's live stream this morning. Pim Johnson's. So, and that's where I discussed that about far more. So basically, guys, I'm going to have to stop here soon because we're over 3 hours, and I've got the night one as well. So my StreamYard account is coming to an end. You know, the amount for this month. So I need to basically stop it here so there's enough time for the last one. Now, if there are any questions that people have got, email me. Or basically, if you're still around, come to my Euro Live chat tonight, and we will chat then. And you can ask me questions about anything that I've missed today. Otherwise, it'll have to be next week. Sorry, guys, if I've missed anybody. I did need to just cover some of these points about nutrition, how we can get it from different foods, because it's very important in that regard. I mean, I did notice a few other people talking about cheese and stuff like that. I would have loved to go into some of that sort of stuff, both the effects and, you know, what works and what doesn't work for certain people. And I think somebody asked me about gut permeability. I would say, look, those collagen type exist in eggs, in things like eggs, liver, things like that, and general just protein. Taurine is something that is required, but is biosynthesized by the body. But if you're over, especially 45, then I would supplement, because that would help, because you don't produce enough and it's really required. It's also, taurine is also good to clear out beta amyloid in your brain. So it has a lot of different roles. So, but it also helps with tight junctions in that regard. So it works synergistically, because it's an amino transporter, works synergistically with the collagen sort of type of aminos. I'm just quickly going through, just see if there's any. Okay. That was about the milk. Anything else? Anyway, I can't see anything else. I'm just roughly going through. Look, if I've missed anyone, sorry. And I'll come on tonight's stream if you want. Yeah, great. I'll send you a link. We'll have a bit of a few jokes, a few laughs, and talk a bit of shit. See you then. I'll send you through the link. It's 9 o'clock your time. You guys have gone an hour ahead before we go, an hour ahead, like daylight savings next week. So next week we're in daylight savings. You guys are this week in daylight savings. So basically it means you guys are 3 hours ahead of us at the moment. So 6 o'clock here is 9 o'clock your time. Good. I'll send you the link shortly. Anyway, guys, Roger and out. Loved you being here. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Go and check Pim's earlier live stream today. So don't forget to do that. And I will see some of you lovely people later tonight. Take care and see you guys. And thanks again for being here.